Observability is changing fast, especially in this age of AI. Today, I'm joined by David, CTO of Bronto, to talk about where the industry is headed. David, welcome.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. So can you start a little bit by telling us what is Bronto and what's the problem that you set out to solve?
Bronto is an observability platform. Originally a logging platform, but now we're adding tracing and metrics to it. The problems we try to solve is we're low cost, we're low latency, and we scale well. Low cost means for storage, and that means that we can offer long retention periods. So that means you can do maybe things you couldn't do with historical data. A lot of our competitors would have very short retention periods, so you keep your data for a short length of time, which obviously is good for a certain amount of debugging, diagnostics, and operational, but not good for historical. So we just have a 12-month by default retention. We use special technologies to make search really fast. So our search is generally completed in milliseconds. We have searches that run hundreds of terabytes to complete in seconds. Because again, we had one customer who used to take 30 minutes to run a certain operation, it takes 30 seconds. That gives a different level of things that they can do with an observability product. So that's kind of where we are. And large scale, we build for large scale now in terms of we're SaaS, so we take advantage of that, and we have in a previous life the type of volumes of 700 terabytes a day. We're not at that yet, but we will. We plan to be there. We have customers who send us a couple of hundred terabytes a month. So we'll get there very soon. So it's large scale, and the scale is only increasing with AI.
So what was the kind of moment where you realized that observability was not being sold in the best possible way?
Well, we had background in this in a previous company where we had built the back end of a SIM, and then we started. We in our own use case there, we were seeing competitors that couldn't predict their bills, and usage was going up. People were saying us 20 to 30% of infrastructure cost was observability, which doesn't seem right, but that's what their experience was. So we thought we could do better, with some newer technology and our own technology. Basically, we thought we could do better, and we had some experience from before building large systems like this, and we thought we could take advantage of some new technologies to do this. In particular, serverless computing being one of them we take advantage of.
So you're a big serverless user?
Yes, we would use serverless for searches above a certain size, which means that we don't have to provision a huge capacity for most searches. But for when searches get really big, as in maybe 100 terabytes, 200 terabytes, or even less than that, but to get the right speed that people want, we can use serverless.
Oh, do you use provision concurrency then on Lambda?
We do sometimes.
Sometimes. Oh, interesting. Yeah, there's so much fine tuning and tweaking you can get into with
Yes,
Lambda
we basically found that getting a Lambda as much memory as we can get gives you everything else.
Yes, crank up the power. Yeah.
Yeah. So with short periods of time.
So I was looking at previous chat that we had with one of your engineers,
yes,
who is also called David.
Yes.
And it sounded like one of the really unique parts of the way Bronto price your platform is that it's a kind of pay on retrieval rather than pay for retention.
It's price per gigabyte ingested.
Okay, per ingestion. Oh, right.
So, and what we're doing is we've rolled out tracing and the metrics will also be per gigabyte ingestion. So very simple for people to figure out our bill. So then they'll be able to predict it. So right. A lot of companies add on various things for metrics. It could be per data point. For traces, it could be per host or per data point, and the same could be used for metrics. And they can become high cardinality very quickly, and you can get surprises. So we are just going to do per gigabyte sent in, so you'll be able to predict. And associated with that, to protect ourselves, we have quotas on search, but they're set at a level that we don't expect most customers to hit. So, our search quota is 100x your ingestion quota. So you can, if you have a 1 terabyte ingestion contract, you can get 100 terabytes of search.
So this is how you're able to solve that original problem you mentioned of billing.
Yes, and we think we can do this because we didn't build on anybody else's technology. We obviously use a lot of tools, standard tools like Kafka and DynamoDB and EC2 instances from Amazon and ASGs. But we built our own storage. So we have our own data store. And we use column data, and we use the same architecture to ingest, be it metrics, tracing, or logs. That means that we can control how we store it. We build on top of some other platform like ClickHouse or Elasticsearch. We have our own platform, and we optimize our columnar formats for storage. And then we use S3 as well. So we can tune the columnar formats we have, which are our own, for our own optimize storage, and also for search, we can do our own indexing. So with us, you don't have to build an index. We automatically build the index. We build three indexes of our own at ingestion time. So again, trying to make it automatically easy for people to use and get the performance that we have.
What would you say is the biggest kind of architectural decision that you've had to make that shaped Bronto?
That's a hard one. Probably, decoupling storage and compute is probably the basic one that most people say at a high level. Storing data in a columnar format, logs in particular are naturally row, but a lot of people do statistics across them now, so it's not a good way to store. To store kind of for analytics, so you don't want to go through a key or through a column. So that was a big decision, and doing our own search algorithms as well as that. So we have, we realized a few things about search algorithms that we can parallelize highly. So those kind of things we took some.
Was there anything that maybe was risky at the time but turned out to be a good call, or vice versa?
Yeah, I think basically seeing if we could store the data columnar. Now there are you can say that there are other formats out there which are columnar, trying to come up with our own. Our new metrics service was risky because, again, why would we build our own metrics? But we figured we could do something with our columnar storage, so we could use all the rest of our architecture, but we actually do the change at the storage level, at ingestion level, and that was a big risk, but it's paying off.
So in terms of like the billing model, the usage-based billing, it sounds like a simple thing to implement, but it's sometimes quite tricky to make it fair.
Yes.
How did you approach that? What were some of the things that surprised you about applying that?
Well, you see, so something you have to be careful as well. At ingestion time, you can't really drop data. So if someone sends you something by mistake, it could be key data. So you basically have to not drop that data and accept it. So some companies don't; they just drop it at quota. We don't. We're kind of tolerant. We're small, but we're in that sense, we're early. So, but we accept it, and we will issue alerts to people.
Right.
And generally, people are very understanding, and generally will increase the subscription because if that is a genuine increase in their thing because they got a new service or something coming on board. So that's one thing we do there. So and then for search and limits on that, it's again set to a level that we don't expect anybody to hit really unless they do something really big. Again, maybe they're in the middle of an investigation, so that's why we allow that to go beyond the quota. So that's so that pricing is kind of to keep it simple because. A lot of people get confused about their bill. Do they pay for data points, hosts? Do they pay for AI usage? Do they pay to actually have all the search functions that are enabled? Like, do they have full group by automatically? Do they have regex functionality? How many monitors they have? So those things are kind of complex for people to manage and get a hold of, and some of those companies you don't even know the charges until you're billed. So we have a usage page in our product that we can. People can see, and before you do a big search, we'll warn you how it's going to be a big search out of your quota. So if you know you're going to search 100 terabytes, you don't really want to. You'll be warned before you do that. Are you sure you want to do this? So it's keeping it simple. So in terms of our AI kind of charges, again, we follow the kind of model that some of the AI companies themselves have followed. In the sense, we give you a little bit for 15 minutes, then we give you a bit more for an hour, and then we give you a bit more for again. So again, trying to let people do reasonable use within their basic subscription. But at the same time, kind of make sure that there's no excessive usage because people can make mistakes. They can have runaway scripts, they can have runaway logs, and that type of stuff.
So you mentioned AI, and it looks like increasingly we're moving from debugging applications to now debugging agents.
Yes.
How does that change the way we think about observability?
It's a good question. That's what we're in the middle of doing right now. So we're building agents. So we're experiencing some of this ourselves. And that comes down to prompts. A lot of it is prompt engineering. So there are two things that we can we're looking at really in broad terms. One is when you send us some data related to an LLM, we will automatically create dashboards and monitors and save searches for you. So we'll try and pass that data. We automatically pass the data comes into us again because we can recognize we recognize a lot of data formats, so we can build the passes automatically. Once we know the type of data, we can build the dashboards automatically. Again, trying to remove some of the setup pain you have with other systems. So the first part of AI is for us to provide nice dashboards for people doing that type of stuff. And it's that community is kind of only coming to terms with kind of productionizing things and actually logging data and actually sending traces.
The education issue at the same time.
Yes, a little bit of that. And the second part of it is how we use AI in our product. And that consists really of two things. There's the agent side. So we have an MCP server where we've tried to build a lot of rich functionality into that server rather than it just being a proxy for APIs. And then we're building agents mainly for showing off the capabilities of the platform within to talk to our MCP server. And so that's that. I mean, then we're building certain things into our product, like we have an investigation report, which allows you to, when an alert happens, you can actually go and generate an investigation report. What we'll do for that is we'll query the logs. So we'll work with the LLM to query the logs. So saying the LLM isn't sampling logs, he's running a query which gives him back exact logs that are relevant to the question he's asking. So we think that's kind of powerful. And so that's and the other thing is we're making, I said we had our own data store. As part of that, we are building what we consider intelligence into that. So we're adding things that agents would like history, investigation history, or audit history is a big part of it. So, what alerts fired in the last month, in the last day? And so they can ask a question like, we store investigation reports. So can you, have I seen something like this before? So that then if it's the same alert that triggered this before and how you handled it the last time with these queries or whatever, we can report that back. And we're adding coverage into our MCP server. So coverage, have you any logs that you don't have alerts for, or you're not sending data to? Maybe you should look at these, because why are you sending in this log and not using it or not searching it? So the type of things we can build that kind of intelligence on top of our basic data store.
Maybe this is a silly question, but when you're using agents in your own product that I imagine are scoped for specific things that they are capable of, when they communicate with each other and pass work onto each other, do they use natural language to do that, or is there some sort of...
No, we haven't really hit that case yet. The agents in our product are very much dedicated towards certain functions.
Yeah.
So investigation report, creating a widget, generating something for search. So they're very much... We have done some experiments and written some blogs on agents that use our MCP server or sit outside the system. And we've experimented with using A2A for that.
Okay.
A2A works nicely for that in terms of sharing information in a nice trusted way between agents. The problem is a problem with a lot of that kind of system is the meaning. So if I'm an agent who says I prepare invoices, and you're an agent who says I need to build something, how do you know that his invoice is good enough for you, other than you haven't got some a priori arrangement? So that semantic piece, I think, is missing.
What do you use to orchestrate between agents? Is there like a workflow service or a code only? Or?
Well, at the moment, within the examples we have an AI assistant which handles the interaction with the model, so that controls things like quotas and stuff like that. Our agents, basically, their main interaction right now is their interactions with our query service or our alert service rather than with each other. But I said that's why we experiment with A2A to see if that's ready yet to do something a bit richer.
So looking ahead in the next 5 years, what do you think will be different about observability?
It's interesting whether I think the world might stratify even more into between people who are really experts in SRE, who know the systems really well, and then maybe people who we've overburdened at the level of being kind of analysts of the data, that they've had to learn too much about individual systems and individual services, that the AI will handle that aspect for them so they'll be able to ask more meaningful questions themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that there will be the real experts who will still have to have maybe some of the low end smarts, and then there'll be the guys who actually will be assisted more, and that's the guys that why should you have to learn a new language every time you want to go into a different system? That sort of thing should be removed, and we should surface things that we think are of interest to them instead of something going to go diving around in the system to see, well, have I got errors and stuff? We should surface that to them more, and we were kind of experimenting with some ideas on that, which they'll start coming out again in Q4 and beyond. But I think that's the broad thing. There'll be, whether the human in the loop will ever be removed. That's the big question, I suppose. In that case, I think there will be more and more defined use cases where the human in the loop is not necessary. But I think for a lot of the right operations, taking actions, I think there'll always have to be some level of approval for key things. For mundane things, no. There's a lot of that work will be automated fully, and eventually the human in the loop will be in the place, and as people trust the system more and trust the results more, they'll automate those decisions. But there'll still be some really hard ones, like, do I turn this server off now, or do I turn it on?
Yes. If we were having this conversation, say in 3 years' time for now, what would you hope to be telling me that Bronto has achieved in that space of time?
That we've changed the world of observability. Really, that's what I'd say in terms of it's people aren't afraid of the cost. People aren't not doing things they would do if they had more data and faster search. So we would be enabling them to do all the things we do and make it easy for them. That's where I'd like to be.
Yeah, beautiful. That's a nice big goal, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to set big goals when you're starting out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, look, thanks so much for coming in to chat to us. You're talking at the meetup this evening.
Yes, I'll be talking about how we use Stripe for billing, and it's quite a simple use case, but because we simplified our pricing model, I mean, Stripe fit in really well with all that stuff. So
great. Well, I'll look forward to that, and I'll make sure we share that video in the link here.
Great.
Thanks so much,
Thank
David.
you.
Thanks.